For our first acrylic painting project, we're going to talk about op art and what op art is and how it will apply to our project. So op art is a type of art that uses pattern to create movement and an illusion. Our first example is a painting by artist Bridget Riley, who did this entirely by hand in the 1960s. It often uses pattern to create movement or illusion, but it can also use things like value, like the lightness or darkness of a color to create illusion, or rhythm and movement. So, for example, the movement in this artwork is kind of what creates the illusion. And Victor Vasarely did this by starting with a perfect circle and a perfect square in the center and then distorting the shape of those objects as they go around the sphere. Victor Vasarely is probably the most famous op artist. He was the pioneer of the op art movement. He did his first op art painting in the 1930s, but in the 1960s, when other things like pop art started gaining popularity, is when he really became known for his artworks. Bridget Riley is the other probably prominent pop or op artist. She gained popularity when she did an exhibit with Victor Vasarely at the Museum of Modern Art in New York City. And these are some of her artworks. Here's some more examples. And here's what we're going to do for our project. So when you create any type of op art, it always takes some level of math skill because you have to do some measuring, you have to do some angles and shapes and that type of thing. These are separate projects all put together. Your project will look like this. So we're really focusing this unit on applying the acrylic paint, how we can create different tints, tones, and shades, how we can create gradations and blend. So that's really what we're going to be focusing on. So we're going to start in our sketchbook today. This is what your new sketchbook will look like. You will not have a due date because, as you know, we turn in different pages every Friday, and we're going to start with page 1. So today, Mr. O is going to sit at the front round table. He's going to give you 3 colors. You're going to get white, you're going to get black, and then you're going to pick your 3rd color. You're not going to get very much paint. He's going to pour the paint for you. And then if you need more paint today, you can come back and he can give you more. All right. He's also going to give you 2 different sizes of paintbrushes. Those paintbrushes are yours for the entire project, and they're your responsibility. Now, I'm just going to warn you, they're not very great quality. So if you push hard on them and you mess around with them, they're going to break. Okay. But if you don't wash them out every day too, because you're lazy and you come back tomorrow and your paintbrush is full of paint and it's all hard and you can't use it, well, sorry, you need to take care of your stuff, okay? So those paintbrushes are going to stay in your bin for the entire project. You are responsible for cleaning them out every day. There are even little scrubbing pads at the bottom of the sink. Scrub them until they are clear. But once again, you have to be a little delicate with them because they're kind of cheap and they will break. All right, so once you get your paint and your paintbrushes, you probably also need a cup of water. The water cups are underneath the sink in the middle of the classroom. You can each get 1. You only need the little cups. You all don't need to get the big containers of water, okay? You can all get your own cup, and then at the end of class, instead of just dumping it out, I ask that you please rinse it out, because if you're just dumping out the nasty stuff, it leaves the nasty stuff at the bottom of the cup. So you need to actually rinse it out and put it away. Okay, then you're gonna start on page 1. We're just starting with a value scale, super easy. So whatever color you choose, you're gonna paint that color right in the middle. So for example, blue, all right? Then going this direction, you're gonna create tints. To create tints, you need to add white. So you're gonna add a little bit of white to this one to add a lighter blue, and then you're gonna add even more white to create this light tint. Going this direction, you're going to create shades. So you're gonna have to add black. So you're going to add just a tiny bit of black on this one, and you're gonna add even more black on this one. You need to be careful because when you add black to any color, black takes over really quickly. So you want to add a tiny, tiny bit of black at a time. So that is the first page you need to try and get done today, is page 1. Like in our watercolor sketchbooks, if you want to rip out the page and set it aside so that you can then do the next one without it smearing and getting all over the rest of your sketchbook, that's fine. The second page is the tint, tone, and shade page. And you are going to need all 3 colors for this, okay? So you will have to go get more colors from Mr. O. you're going to follow exactly the directions. So you're going to mix red and white to create a tint. You're going to mix blue and white to make a tint, and yellow and white to make a tint. You're then going to do the same thing to create tones, which is when you add gray to a color, and the same thing to create shades when you add black to a color. This is just to get us in the mindset of what we're going to be doing for our project, just for practice. So yes, you will need to go get those colors from Mr. O and make sure you have all 3 colors. Okay, the last page you're going to do today is page 3 in your sketchbook, which looks like this. So I printed out a practice vector photo for you, then you have one on your paper. I printed out a value scale for you, and you have one on your new paper. And I'm going to demonstrate how to do that with you right now. Okay, so for your sketchbook page 3 today, you're going to definitely need a cup of water. You're going to need a paper towel probably, your paint, and your paintbrushes. All right, so let's go to page 3, and I'm actually going to rip it out so it makes it a lot easier. Okay, so here's my page 3, and I'm going to start with the vector. Now, I can see when I copied it, it got a little light, so for this video, I'm going to retrace it a little bit for you so that you can see better. If you feel like you need to do this too before you start painting, go ahead and do that. I apologize. I didn't realize it copied so light, so I'm just going to go over it with my pencil really quickly. Don't feel like you need to get out a ruler to do this because this is just practice, and you'll see why we're going to do it in just a minute. All right, so I'm just going to retrace my vector really quickly. All right, and I didn't do a very good job, so don't feel like it has to be perfect. Okay, so you should be doing this with only one color. All right, and I did put the directions below, but I'm going to start with the value scale. Now, obviously 1 should be almost white, right? You decide if you want to use the really thin brush or the flat brush. I'm going to use the flat brush for this, and I'm going to make it almost completely white, and I'm going to add like seriously the tiniest bit of blue. And I'm going to paint that square, or rectangle, I guess. Okay, it should be almost white when you paint it. Now, this doesn't have to be like the cleanest thing you've ever done, but you do need to paint the whole rectangle, and you do need to try and make it kind of clean. Okay, if you go out of the lines a little bit, it'll be okay. All right, so then I'm going to do the same thing again, add a tiny bit of blue. Mix it, paint the next one. If you can't see a difference between your first and second, you're going to need to do it again. The thing about acrylic paint is it dries pretty dang fast on your paper, so you're going to want to work fast if you are mixing colors. Here's my next one. Okay, and then we want our fourth one to be almost at our normal color, almost there, if not quite there. Add even a little bit more of that normal color in there. Okay, so you can tell a distinct difference between each one. You're just going to use the plain color for 5, just the plain color. Okay, then for the next one, I obviously need to add a little bit of black. Once again, black can change a color really quickly, so you want to make sure that you only add a little bit at a time because it gets dark really fast. And then my 7th one should be pretty dang dark. And I'm going to make it dark. Okay. However, even though it's dark, you should still be able to see that original color in there. If you can't, you needed to go too dark. Thankfully though, acrylic dries fast. You can go over it. Okay. All right. So there are my 7 that I just painted on my value scale. You can tell a distinct difference between every one, right? This paper is going to be your resource throughout your entire project. So you need to take really good care of it because you're going to need to use it. And I will explain why as we complete this process, but you will find out more as we paint our project. Okay, so now that my value scale is done, we're just going to play around with this practice one up here. And I'm going to use my really thin paintbrush, and you're going to try to match the values and paint what you see. Now, this is just kind of exercise so that you can practice painting what you see, and so that we can just determine that if you kind of know what you're doing. So I'm going to start with the lightest value, which would be a 1. Okay, so I'm going to start painting anywhere that I see a 1. And if I'm going to look at this, I see a 1 and a lot of this one, so I'm going to paint that. Okay, and I'm doing this pretty fast and sloppy, okay? You guys take your time. So I see that this should be a 1 value because of my value scale, but I'm also now looking at what did I use as a 1 and how can I paint that on my paper? Okay, where else do I see a 1? Well, I think I see a 1 along here. Some. Where else do I see a 1? Well, definitely up here. Once again, I'm doing this super fast for the purpose of this video. I want you guys to try and take your time and make it look neater than what I'm doing. I think I see a 1 down here. That probably was too dark. Okay, I see a 1 down here. I think I see some 1 maybe down here. And maybe a little bit right here. Okay, now then you can go to 2 and you can say, okay, where is it really light but it's a little bit darker? And you can start adding your 2 in. So I'm going to say probably in here. And you're just practicing, okay? Now, I'm not going to finish this whole thing, but I will go in and say like, oh, where's a 7? Or where's a 6? And I can start adding those. So if I look out where it's a lot darker, well, it gets a lot darker up here, for sure. And then it's almost like a 7 right at the top in here. Okay, so you're going to paint this whole practice one too as well, using your value scales as kind of your reference point as to what you should be doing. Okay, like I said, I'm not going to finish this whole thing while you guys are waiting to get to work, but do your best to kind of match what you see. This is just practice, once again, to kind of get your eyes going so that we can start thinking about what we're going to be doing on our projects. All right, now, obviously with this little tiny thing that you guys are painting on, it's not going to be perfect. I just, once again, want to see what we think that we're doing, okay? All right, so if you do not get it all done today, that's totally fine. You can just pick it up again in the next class period, but this paper is going to be your resource for the entire project. You need to take care of it, take care of it, take care of it. When you're done for the day, this plate goes in the trash. Once again, you need to rinse this cup out, not just dump it out, and you need to clean your brushes as well as you can.